Okay, today we're in Proverbs chapter 5. Now, in our last lesson, we studied what we have up here, and I'm not going to take time to go back and review a lot about that today, but I do want to call our attention to this because it is so important. And that is that as we have studied these first 4 chapters in here, we find that the main idea is to keep your heart with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. Now, keep your heart. That is, protect your mind and do it with all diligence. The word diligence means to exert energy, to set forth with an effort. And so make sure that in our life, the number one thing is that we protect our mind. We keep it, for out of it are the issues of life. The reason that we need to set this mind as number one is because everything we say or do comes out of it. Now you might say, well, aren't other things important in life? Yes. Isn't it important to make money, or to have a good job, or to get a skill? Isn't it important to have a good marriage or raise children? Aren't those things really important? Yes. But the most important thing is to keep your heart with all diligence, because you can't raise your children properly unless you have it up here. You can't have a good marriage until it comes from up here. You can't do anything or say anything until, first of all, it originates up here. So that's what he is telling us then, is to keep your heart in there. Now, here we find just a statement where the Lord makes a statement that without any doubt settles a question. But the things which proceed out of the mouth cometh forth out of the heart, and they defile the man. So whatever we say comes from here. For out of the heart cometh forth evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, railings. In other words, everything we do originates up here in the mind or in the heart. So what the book of Proverbs is trying to tell us, and especially in the first 9 chapters, is to lay the groundwork and trying to tell us over and over again in a number of ways that the number one thing in your life is to make sure you keep your heart or you keep your mind in the right way in here. Then we took a little time to learn this, and we need to keep it in mind because it is so important in everything we do that when you think about your heart or your mind, there's a word that goes into it. Some thought goes into it, and then we form a picture of that word. We always think in pictures, and then whatever the picture is of that word, it causes us to have an emotion, a good one or a bad one, and that emotion causes us to have an action. Then we go into action. Now all of this happens in just a blink of an eye, and we can have this to happen 1,000 times really in just a matter of a minute. But this is a way that our mind actually works. For instance, we use, if you say snake, now that forms a picture in your mind. And everybody has a picture somehow of a snake, and that will cause us to have an emotion. Generally, it's one of fear. It's one that will cause us to then act, and that is to jump back. So whatever it is that we have in this picture, that's what we're going to have. And you can't function without that. You can't beat the system. You can't say, well, I'm going to do it some other way. This is the way human beings have always thought. It's the way that God made our mind. And when we understand this, then we'll appreciate a little bit more about keeping our hearts then in this way. Okay, with this in mind then, today we're going to start out now in chapter 5. Now, as we start out in chapter 5 here, we're going to be talking about a harlot. Now, it's rather interesting that when we think about the first 9 chapters of the book of Proverbs, we see that out of the 9, about 6.5 are on the subject of wisdom, of keeping your heart. Now, here's what you do. You keep your heart. You keep your heart. You keep your heart. And then there's over 2 chapters, about 2.5 chapters, that deals with just a subject right here of teaching a man to stay away from a strange woman because it will get you in trouble. And then there's a 3/4 of a chapter, or almost a whole chapter, on other things that tells us this. But when you look at it, you see that 75% of laying the groundwork in these first 9 chapters is keep your heart. And then about 50% is about young men, stay away from a strange woman. Isn't that interesting? Now, let's suppose that somehow you could call upon God right now and talk directly with God, which in essence you can do, because you can talk to Him in prayer and He can talk to you through His Word. Now, if we say, Lord, teach me to keep my heart. Lord, teach me how to live with wisdom. What do I do? Now I'm ready to listen. Now the Lord has written down in here, and He has told me what to do in order to keep my heart. And so He's told me how important it is to get wisdom. But then the next important thing He says is, and make sure that you stay away from the strange woman. That shows that God understands the power of sexual allurement, of where a harlot can draw a man in. That's what these verses are all about, and that's what we'll see in here. Now today, we need to go through chapter 5 and 7, of which we don't have time to read every verse and go through it and talk about it. But the reason I want to go through it is because both of them are about this very thing. Both of them are going to be telling us this. They're going to be telling us in here by putting things into our mind. So here's a man, and now we're going to put things into his mind, and he's going to talk about the harlot, the loose woman. And he says he's going to be talking about she has these powers of fair speech, a mouth smoother than oil, lips that drop honey, flattereth with her words. She knows how to talk with the man to seduce him. And then she knows how to present herself so that when he sees her, it will draw him toward her. Her bosom will be enticing. She will have on the attire of a harlot. That is, she will be dressed in such a way to draw attention to her sexuality. And then it's going to say that she then will finally catch him and she'll kiss him. In other words, she's going to be touching him in this act of seducing. And then smell. She's going to perfume her bed, and she's going to draw him in this way. Now, all of these things, this woman, this strange woman is a woman that is not your wife. Now, these are things that a strange woman will use. Now, that's what he tells us in here. He tells us how that this whole thing works. So now then, here's a man, and he has these thoughts going into his mind. Now, he's going to form a picture over here of this woman. It's going to be a picture, and then it's going to cause an emotion, either good or bad, and it's going to cause an action. Now, let's real quickly take a look right here now in chapter 5, and we kind of have to skim the whole thing, but we just kind of want to put it together because really all of us know these things. He starts out and he says, my son, attend unto my wisdom, incline thine ear unto my understanding, that thou mayest preserve discretion, that thy lips may keep knowledge, and the lips of a strange woman, for the lips of a strange woman drop honey. Her mouth is smoother than oil, and in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet goeth down to death, her steps take hold in Sheol, that is the grave, so that she findeth not the level path of life. Her ways are unstable, and she knoweth it not. Now, he's going to show us that there are two ways to walk, and that is that a man must understand that as he goes out, he's going to be seduced in this woman, in this life, by these strange women. And they're going to look as though they have the answer to all of his problems. Everything about them is perfect. The way they talk, what they say, the way they look, it is all perfect to draw him unto him, draw him unto her. But he says her ways are unstable in every way. She's unstable. She has no level path in life. And so keep this in mind, young man. Do you want to walk the right path, or do you want to take the path that looks like, sounds like it is the answer to your problems? Now he goes on and he says, Now therefore, my sons, hearken or listen unto me, and depart not from my words of my mouth. Remove thy way far from her, and come not near the door of her house, lest thou give thine honor unto others, and the years unto cruel, lest strangers be filled with thy strength, and thy labor be in the house of an alien. And thou mourn at thy latter end, when thy flesh and thy body are consumed, and say, How have I hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof? Neither have I obeyed the word of my teachers, nor inclined mine ear to them that instructed me. I was well nigh in all evil in the midst of the assembly of the congregation. So he just describes this, that of saying the answer to your problem. The answer, young man, is that when you see these things happening, you get away. Just immediately, you get away. And that's going to be the answer. Now, I want us to write it up in big letters in our mind somewhere. Anytime that you are sexually attracted to somebody that is not your spouse, the Bible gives you one answer. Flee. Get away. Stay away. Because when you stay in close relationship, you're going to lose the battle. And when you lose the battle, then great damage is going to come to you. So keep that in mind. That's what he's saying in all of this, to make sure that you get away. Then he tells the young guy, he said, Drink water out of thine own cistern, and running water out of thine own well. Shouldest thy springs be dispersed abroad, and streams of water in the street? Let them be for thyself alone, and not for strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of thy youth. Here he says the answer is your own wife. A very picturesque way of saying, be satisfied with her. Drink water out of your own well. Don't drink it out of the well that belongs to somebody else. And then it's kind of a vivid picture. He said in here, Why should thy springs be dispersed abroad and streams of water in the street? Now, if you came by my house and you saw that I have a nice well out there, I have pure water coming into the house, but you see me out in the street with the water running down in the gutter, and I'm out there lapping it up. And you say, Lowell, what are you doing? Well, I wanted to drink water. I was thirsty. I want to drink. Well, what are you doing out here in the gutter? What are you doing out here drinking up this water that really doesn't belong to you? Everybody's had something to do with this water here. Some people walk in it. Some people jump over it. Some people do this. Some people do that. Why would you fool around with that? That's what he's saying. He's saying, have enough wisdom to know it's exactly the same thing as drinking water out of the gutter. So let your wife furnish your pleasures. Let you rejoice in the wife of your youth. And as a loving hind or a pleasant doe, let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. Make sure that you put your attention on your wife. Be ravished with her. Now, you're going to be enticed. And I want to say this again, because I want to cover both of these chapters because I don't want to just harp on it, go over it and over it and over it again. But I want you to know that in the book of Proverbs, the Proverbs, inspired by the Holy Spirit, is teaching us that one of the most dangerous things that you have in this life that will cause you problems is being enticed by a strange woman. And he's saying, don't do it. Anytime that you are enticed by somebody that doesn't belong to you, run from it. Do not do it. And so he goes ahead, for why shouldest thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a foreigner? For the ways of man are before the eyes of Jehovah, and he maketh level all his paths. Now, keep this verse in mind here. It's a good one. The ways of man are before Jehovah. Here God is saying, I know you. I understand you, young man. I know your biggest temptation. I understand them, and I'm giving you instruction about how to stay away from the most dangerous thing you're ever going to face. The most dangerous thing a young man has to face, you take a baby that's just born, and that baby going through life, the most dangerous thing is not war. The most dangerous thing is not traffic. The most dangerous thing, and on down the line we can go, the most dangerous thing that boy is going to face is what we're talking about right here. It's the strange woman that will entice him away. So it says here, the ways of man are before the eyes of Jehovah. God knows this. When God made us, he made us the way we are, and he understands he understands how man and woman are made. He made us that way. He made women so that they desire to be pursued. He made man so that they are the pursuer. He understands. God understands all about a man. And what he's trying to tell us is, here is your most dangerous thing that you're going to face. First 9 chapters, telling us how important it is to keep your heart, keep your mind. And then the next big important thing is, your biggest problem is going to be to stay away from the strange woman. So he goes ahead to teach then in this way in here. Now, with this, let's skip to chapter 7. In chapter 7, he's back on the subject again. In chapter 6, it's kind of a unique chapter. It's different. In chapter 6, he's going to tell us some other things that you don't do. But they're nowhere near as dangerous as this. Chapter 5, talking about this sexual allurement. Chapter 7, talking about this same thing. So now, he starts out and he says, my son, keep my words. Now keep in mind, anytime it says my son, this is wisdom talking. This is wisdom personified. It's wisdom as though you take wisdom and make a person out of wisdom. So he goes ahead and he says, my son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of thine eye. Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the tablet of thy heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinsman, that thou mayest keep thee from the strange woman. You see again, he starts out and he says, young man, as you go through life, I want you to take the words of wisdom and bind them upon your heart. Bind them upon your fingers. Keep them in there. Call upon understanding or wisdom as your sister, part of your family. Keep them there so that you can stay away and escape from the strange woman, from the foreigner that flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house, now this is wisdom. This is wisdom telling what to do to stay away and escape this. Now, in here, for the window at my house, that is, Mrs. Wisdom is living in this house. She said, I looked forth through my lattice, and I beheld among the simple ones, that is, the dumb, the stupid, those that do not have much sense, Wisdom looks out, it says, and I beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths, a young man void of understanding. So Mrs. Wisdom, able to look out, there comes a young man and void of understanding. Well, what does wisdom see? It says, void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner. Now he's getting up there close to where she is, and he went the way to her house. In the twilight, in the evening of the day, in the middle of the night, and in darkness, and behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot and wily of heart. Now, here's the first big mistake. He got close to her house. He got close. Now then, this harlot is going to come out, and she's going to meet him. And when she comes out and meet him, she's coming with all the feminine allurement that there is. And so she comes out now with this words and looking so beautiful and desirable. It said, but she's clamorous and willful. Oh, she's so happy, she's loud, she's busy, she's not dull, she's not boring. She's a go-getter. You have fun with this woman. Her feet abideth not in her house. That's her problem. She's going to be out there. She's going to see you. Now she is in the street, now in the broad places, and lieth in wait at every corner. Here's what you're going to find. You're going to find these temptations anywhere you look. In the streets, at the corners, everywhere you look, you're going to see these temptations that are there. There was a study made several years ago, and that is that in the advertisement and what you see as a young man walks down the street and on the job and so forth, that they find that he is sexually stimulated every, and I forget what the seconds are, but it's every 30 seconds or something like that. That he has a sexual stimulation of something coming before his eyes. It's everywhere. It's just everywhere. And he said, now this is what you're going to find. So she caught him and kissed him, and with an imprudent face she said unto him, sacrifices and peace offerings are with me. This day have I paid my vows. So now she's going to catch him, and she's going to sound so innocent. She's going to make it sound so nice. She said, now I have paid my vows. Therefore came I forth to meet thee, diligently to seek thy face, and I have found thee. Now think what she said. She said, my heart is right with God. I've paid my vows. Now then, I've come out to find a guy like you. I came out looking for somebody like you, and I found you. You're it. You're the man that I have been looking for. Is she working on his ego? So she's working on this and saying all this. And in verse 16, I have spread my couch with carpet of tapestry, with striped cloth of the yarn of Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh and aloes and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with loves. For the man of the house is not home. He's going on a long journey. So I want to tell you, everything is set. I have made my life right with God. I need somebody like you. I've come out looking for a good-looking man with a face like you, and what do you know? I found it. You're the man. Let's come home to my house. My husband's gone. He won't be home until next month. He took the money with him, and he'll be back next month. So all of this is safe. We won't get caught. And we're going to be able to solace ourselves, comfort ourselves with loves. In other words, it's not, I want to pacify your sexual desires, but she's going to present herself as, you're mine. You're what I need. You're the one I've been looking for. Let us comfort ourselves with loves. It just seems right. Now you will find that this is true. That when people do this, men get in trouble like this and go into her house, they always justify it. It always seems so good. And you say, well, it shouldn't. I know it shouldn't. But I'm telling you, it always seems so good. And they justify it. And so here is why I did it. All right, it goes on here, and it says in 21, with her much fair speech, she causeth him to yield. With the flattering of her lips, she forceth him along. He goeth after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter. Now this is the picture. She's out there, and with her smooth language, smooth talk, sweet lips, she leads him along just like you lead an ox to the slaughter. Now this is where it pays to be an old farm boy. Anybody knows who lived on a farm that if you want to go out and catch your ox, or your milk cow as far as that's concerned, you want to go out and you want to catch an animal, you don't go out and walk up and grab them and force them into the barn so you can shoot them and butcher them. You're not going to do that. They're going to run from you. You see all these pictures of horses and so forth coming up to people. Well, once in a while you'll have one, but most of the time you don't find one like that. You go out to catch them, and what you have to do is you have to entice them. And all you have to do, if there's an ox out there that I want to butcher, I've got my gun, I'm going to shoot him. Now, I have to get him up here at the right place. All I do is just go out and get a bucket, put a handful of oats in it, just enough to make a noise, and go out and shake the bucket. Just shake the bucket. And it comes up, and here it comes, and he's looking, and here he comes. And so I just shake the bucket in front of his nose, keep walking, shake the bucket, walk in the barn, wherever I want him to be, just walk it, going to come up, let him stick his nose in it, and then pick up my gun, ping, right between his eyes, and he's dead. Now, why didn't the ox run? If the ox had any sense, he wouldn't have let me shot him. He would have been out there running. Anytime that I get close to him, he'd be running away because I'm getting ready to kill him. But how can I entice an ox to come up so that I can kill the ox? The same way a harlot entices a man to come unto her. No difference. That is some picture that you draw. So then he goes ahead and he says, then an arrow is going to strike through your heart and so forth. In verse 24, now go ahead and listen to me, because people have made the mistake and they've been slain and they've ruined their life in doing this thing. Now I want to come back to the picture here to show how this applies in here to the things that we've already learned in all of this. Now here it is. I pointed out some things here that we've looked at and we've seen that's in here. Now then, we formed this picture in here. And so here it is. We're going to form a picture of some beautiful, enticing woman. That's going to be the picture. Now the picture then is going to evoke an emotion. And it's the emotion of, ooh, how beautiful, how enticing. Ooh. Now God knoweth the ways of a man, he says, and that is going to be, and so this emotion is, oh, I want this. Isn't that an emotion that you see when you see a chocolate cookie or anything? Only this is the strongest that there is. And now then, whatever that emotion is, that's going to cause an action. Now, if I were to ask how many guys in here, when you go out and you see a beautiful woman, you see a luscious gal, one that's just perfect in every way, talks in that sweet honey flowing, how many of you says, that just turns me off? I don't like good-looking girls. And I don't like women who sound sweet. I like those mean ones, you know. I like, you know. So, okay, raise your hand, fellas. See? You know what it's going to cause you, and now then the action is going to come. See? Now that's the way that it works that you got there. That's why God's going to tell us what we need to do. Now, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to hit 3 or 4 things right in here, really, and I've taken them out of a sermon that I preached some time ago. It's called The Power of a Woman. Now, when you go to Proverbs and you look, you find in there all 5 things, all 5 senses a woman will use to draw you. First of all are the lips and the words. So she has those beautiful lips, and we have that ear, we listen. Look at what Proverbs does, and we'll not have time to look at these in here. Deliver thee from the immoral woman, from the seductress, who flattereth with her words. And the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. And then he warns us, the flattery of the tongue of the strange woman, and it's a stranger which flattereth with her words. Fellas, what had we better be on the lookout for? What had we better watch? Those words. Another thing that she has is her beauty and her eyelids. He says, lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. Isn't that amazing? How that a woman can lead you along like an ox led to the slaughter, like a man goes out with a handful of oats in a bucket and shakes it around and causes the animal to go wherever he wants it to go so he can kill it. She has that ability with her beauty and with her eyelids. So watch that. Then we find that he talks about the neatness and cleanliness and how she's going to be presentable in such a way that it's just enticing. It's charming to be around her because everything is so nice in there. And then she's going to work on his frail ego. Remember, we've already talked about this. He's the fulfillment of her dreams. She comes out and she diligently sought such a man, she says. She's the most fortunate woman in the world because she's found him. You're something special. You're the most special man that ever lived. And you're falling into the trap. And then make him feel needed. Come and let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with love. In other words, it's not, okay, I'll give myself to you, but it's, I need you as much as you need me. And you are such a handsome guy. You are so nice. I just feel it an honor to be able to take you to my bed. This is Bible. This is what the Bible says. And so that's what she really does. And then there's that mysterious relationship that we haven't had talk about because it's in chapter 9. Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. There's something about man. Remember, God says, I know, man, I know what's in your heart. That if it's a secret, if it's mysterious, if it's not just oh-hum, everyday stuff, if it's mysterious, it makes life exciting. Now, you take anything in this world, I don't care if it's shooting off in a space shuttle. If you do it every day and you do it the same way, it finally gets boring. And you'd say, oh, another trip to the moon? Well, this is getting boring. But here, she's going to present it in such a way. And this is an enticement to us. That's here. We see it in kids stealing cookies and so forth and so on in all the ways. Now, God's solution to keep away from fornication. Read your Bible through, and you're going to find it's really, really simple. And here is how simple it is. Flee. Run. Don't say, well, I'm going to stay around and talk. I'm going to email this person. I'm going to do this or do that. Flee. We have to do exactly what Joseph did. Remember what he did when she had him in the bedroom and grabbed his coat. He knew he was in danger. And he fled out of there so fast that he even left his coat. Now, that's what the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 6:18. You know, when God gives us the answer in the New Testament, that's all he tells us about fornication. Flee fornication. That's simple. Just that simple. Now, if we don't, we're going to stand there and look at her. When I see her, then a new thought's going to come over here to my mind. Wow. Then I'm going to think another thought. Oh boy, what here? And then I want to think another thought. And then here, and then I want to think another. What's happening to me? As it goes around. What's the solution? It's, I have to flee. And so the proverb says, remove thy way far from her, and come not nigh the door of her. And he says, for the ways of man are before the eyes of Jehovah. So what a lesson, men, that we need to understand in order to keep us from the most dangerous thing we're going to face as we walk through this life. Okay, class dismissed.